He called to say he watched spicy content right after our fight, then wanted brownie points for honesty. So I wrote him a letter he couldn't spin and taught him what truth without empathy really costs. I didn't cry when he said it. I just stared at the dark screen of my phone and listened to his breath. Calm, measured, like he hadn't just chosen a stranger's body over the apology I was begging for. I remember the sound of my own heartbeat more than his words, a slow stutter, like a wing that learned too late the window was closed. If you've ever been dismissed when you were hurting, if you've ever been told your boundaries are dramatic while someone steps on them, hit like, subscribe, and drop a comment with "I see you." Because tonight I'm telling the story of the moment I stopped being the cool girl with flexible boundaries and started being the woman who writes the ending. I used to think relationships fail with a bang, an affair, a betrayal you could point to and collect witnesses for. But the truth is, mine died like a room plant, one forgotten watering at a time that I'll call him Evan. We met at a friend's roof party in early spring, the kind where the sky is still testing blue after months of gray. He was funny in the precise way that slips past your defenses, verbal puzzle pieces clicking into place with mine. He taught high school physics and loved riddles, crossword Sundays, and soups. Yes, soups. He had strong opinions about broth clarity and the moral superiority of lentils. It was ridiculous and endearing and, somehow, safe. Safe mattered to me. It still does. Years ago, I survived something that left me living in a fortress of locked codes, and maybe later. My body had become a museum built around a broken statue. Lots of velvet ropes, lots of placards, not much touching. Therapy was the slow permission slip. Reentry exhibit now open, Sundays only. Please be gentle. Evan knew all of this. Or at least, he knew enough. Early on, I told him that spicy content, his term, not mine, was complicated for me. Not because I believe screens are sin, but because my nervous system isn't a library book he could check out while I cataloged returns. I needed intimacy to be a small room with two people in it. Not a nightclub with a back door, but he squeezed my hand the night I told him. Your brain is the hottest part, he said, cheesy and sincere. I believed him. When you want a person to be kind, you'll accept their words like a toddler takes glitter, fistfuls, even if you end up wearing it for months that we built our rhythms. I sent him flirty texts and voice notes, small safe attempts at taking the museum ropes down. We were active, often, more than often. I'd measured progress in nights, like coin drops in a jar. The old me, who flinched at kisses and pretended not to notice my body ghosting me, felt like a stranger I could finally stop writing letters to. But life has a way of testing even the good stuff until it squeaks. My job ramped up into a storm of deadlines. His mother's health took a downturn. We started arguing, not about the big things, but about logistics that somehow felt loaded like they had contraband meaning. When do you talk? Who calls first? Who takes the long drive this time to whose place? Tiny wars that left both of us bleeding at the edges. Then came the night. Not a fight. Exactly. More like an argument dehydrated into powder and inhaled by both of us over the course of a day. We were prickly, snappish. I wanted comfort and clarity. He wanted quiet that we got off the phone unresolved. My apartment felt wrong, like a theater after the audience goes home. The spotlight was still on, shining on nobody. I tried to read, to cook, to pretend my stomach wasn't a small hard thing weighing down my center. An hour later, my phone lit up. Evan. I answered in half a heartbeat. Hey. He didn't say hello. He said, very evenly, I watch porn. The words sounded like glass clicking together. I had the absurd thought that he'd called to confess to eating the last of my leftover curry. That's how small the thing sounded in the air. Then it landed. What? My voice did a weird double echo in my ear, like my phone hadn't decided whether I deserved latency. I watch porn. He said it again, like he'd practiced it. I just want to be honest. I don't want secrets between us. The silence after was a long animal. It crawled into the room and sat on my chest. Every part of me wanted to say the sentence I'd trained myself to say when I was younger and trying to be the girl who rolls with things. It's fine. I'm fine. That's normal. But I'd told him months ago that while normalized, it wasn't neutral for me. Because we fought? I heard my voice thin into a knife. You did that because we fought. I didn't say that, he replied, annoyingly careful. I'm just telling you I did. Just telling me he did. Like he'd donated to charity. Like it was an act of integrity. I stared at a chip in the paint on my wall and thought, he wants credit for the pain he's causing me. That was new. That was the part that reshaped the room. It makes me feel replaced, I said, low. I have told you that. It makes me feel stepped out on, especially after an argument. He exhaled a not quite sigh. You're making this about us when it wasn't. I just wanted to be honest. Don't you want honesty? Honesty is a sacred word. It's supposed to be a clean dish you can eat off. But he dropped something in it and stirred. Now the whole menu tasted like blame. I want honesty that isn't weaponized, I said. I want kindness. He said nothing to that. And because silence breeds thoughts like unattended lawns breed weeds, my mind produced a nasty little sprout. He did it to prove he could. To get control back. To remind you there are doors you can't lock. That we got off the phone. No resolution. My chest felt like someone had rearranged the furniture without telling me. Later, when I texted to say I needed space, he replied, "Does this mean what I think it does?" As if I'd hunted him with an unnamed threat. As if my need to feel safe made me the danger. That night, I didn't sleep so much as list. I listed every time I'd bitten my tongue so he could feel like a good person. Every time I'd smoothed over a hurt with, "I know you didn't mean it," when the point wasn't intentions. It was impact. The list grew until dawn threw pale light across it. I showered with the water too hot and put on my softest sweater because the part of me that needed comfort didn't know how to ask in words. The next day, he sent a message. A single line, "I'm sorry it hurt you." Not "I'm sorry I hurt you." The difference is a wire you can trip over miles later. I stared at that sentence, and something in me turned. I didn't know it yet, but the girl who wins arguments by explaining herself to death. She was packing her boxes. The week after the night was one long audition where I kept trying out versions of myself. The cool girlfriend who shrugs and says, "Boys will be boys." The reasonable partner who asks for a compromise. No spicy content for a month. Let's reset. The therapist's favorite, who uses I statements and requests instead of accusations. I wore each costume like a borrowed dress and checked myself in the mirror. Nothing fit. Evan was quieter, softer. Exactly the way a person acts when they want you to forget what made you mad, so you'll come back to the table and pretend the food wasn't burnt. He still texted good mornings. Still sent photos of his students' ridiculous lab setups. But there was distance, like he was standing behind glass. He looked like my boyfriend, but somehow he wasn't taking up any oxygen in the room. On Wednesday, we finally had the talk. Not the tidy kind you find in a script with bullet points and a satisfying third-act reconciliation. Ours was messy. Two people trying to find a bridge in the fog. "I'm not asking you to be someone you're not," I said, picking at a coffee sleeve in a cafe that smelled like roasted almonds and regret. "I'm asking you to honor what I've told you about my brain." He looked tired, and that annoyed me. My pain should not be his nap. "I hear you," he said. "I do. But it feels like sometimes you want to police my inner life." "Your inner life becomes my outer hurt," I said, trying to keep my voice level. "And doing it after we argue? It feels punitive, Evan." He sat back. Something shuddered behind his eyes, the way windows in old houses slam when the wind changes. "I didn't do it to hurt you." "Then why call to tell me?" I asked. "Why that night? If not to get a reaction?" He looked away. "Because I value honesty." There it was. The company line. Honesty. A word we both used but didn't agree on the price of. "I used to not tell you things," he added, defensive now. "And you said that was withdrawal. You can't have it both ways." My throat burned. He was right in a technical sense and wrong in a human one. Like a person who followed GPS onto a pedestrian bridge and said, "Well, the directions told me to." I wanted to scream. Instead, I folded the coffee sleeve until it was a soft square. "This isn't a logic puzzle," I said. "It's my nervous system. I'm not asking you to install a surveillance state on your laptop. I'm asking you to be on my team." "I am on your team," he said, surprised. Offended. "I told you because that's what teammates do. Teammates don't spike the ball in your face and call it a pass." But I didn't say that. I just exhaled, long and slow. "I need a boundary," I said, feeling the roof of my mouth go cold with conviction. "No porn. Not while you're with me. Not while I am trying to relearn safety. If that asks too much of you, tell me, and I won't make you be someone you can't be. But I won't be the girl who swallows pain so you can feel uncomplicated." He stared at me, then past me. "That feels like an ultimatum." "It's a boundary," I said, calm in a way that scared me. Ultimatums manipulate. Boundaries describe what I will do. If this continues, I will leave. The words hung there like a light fixture, illuminating we were in different rooms, that we didn't resolve it. Of course we didn't. Looking back, the conversation was never about a screen. It was about whether a person would put down the thing in their hand if it was hurting the person they loved, even if it didn't hurt them to hold it. My therapist calls that joining, the act of stepping into someone's experience not because you're convinced, but because you are chosen. It's the opposite of being right. It's being with. That weekend his mom fell in the kitchen and bruised her hip. The crisis vacuumed the air out of everything. He drove to her town, sent me updates from the ER, and I responded with softness because compassion is a habit in me, not a performance. He thanked me, said I was his anchor. I let the argument slide into the background because there are moments where a point is less important than a person, but the background isn't the trash. It's storage. Days later, when his mom was stable and he was home, I went to his place. We made pasta and watched a movie with subtitles because his upstairs neighbor has the quiet gallop of a horse, and we were both too tired for explosions. In the middle of it, he leaned into me, and I flinched, not because I didn't want him, but because somewhere my body was still braced. He noticed. He always noticed physical reactions more than spoken ones. "You okay?" he asked. "I'm trying to be," I said. Truthful. Small dot he nodded and kissed my temple. "I love you." I wanted that sentence to fix things the way cartoons paint bridges over cliffs. It didn't, but I held on to it anyway, knuckles white. Later, while he slept, I lay awake. My brain was a hallway of doors. Behind one, the old fear that I'm too much, too fragile, a museum with too many do not touch signs. Behind another, the newer fear that I'm actually not asking for that much, and men prefer women whose pain presents as hobbies. Then a third door, cracked. What if he called to tell me because he wanted me to break up with him so he wouldn't have to? The thought was ugly. It also fit. The next morning I made us coffee and looked at his laptop on the table. Closed. Innocent. It sat there like a question. I didn't open it. I want that noted on the record. I didn't snoop. I didn't need to. Because just then his phone buzzed with a notification that lit the screen, an app one didn't recognize. In the preview, a thumbnail that made my stomach cold that he walked out from the bedroom yawning, rubbing his neck. "You okay?" I looked up at him and felt something quiet go still in me. Yeah, I lied, because the argument we'd parked had turned on its hazard lights and started honking. He followed my gaze, saw the phone, and his mouth pulled into a line. "It's just an ad," he said, too fast. "Even if it is," I said, voice even. "This is the exact slot machine my brain can't be near." He exhaled. "I can't control what ads." "No," I said gently. "But you can control whether you keep the casino in your pocket." Silence again, dense as humidity. He picked up the phone and flipped it face down like that answered anything that we spent the day avoiding the topic like it was a hot pan we'd both burned ourselves on before. I went home early. On the train, my reflection in the window looked like a woman who had given every reasonable sentence she owned and still didn't own her piece that I texted him that night. "I need a week. No talking. I have to think." He wrote back, "Does this mean what I think it does?" I stared at those 12 words and realized he wasn't asking me for clarity. He wanted me to do the labor of being the bad guy. I typed. "It means I need to feel safe. I'll let you know." Then I blocked notifications so the phone couldn't bark at me and retrained my hands to be still. The week was a series of small, hard victories. I ate. I slept. I went to work and didn't cry in the bathroom. I took long walks and listened to podcasts about boundaries like they were prayers. Somewhere between Tuesday and Thursday, my spine found itself. By Friday, I understood the shape of my decision. It wasn't a thunderclap. More like the moment you realize the tide has come in while you were paying attention to something else. My shore was different. That's all. That's enough that I was going to leave. Not as revenge. As refusal. The revenge would come later, and it wouldn't look like keying a car or sending screenshots. It would look like clarity. It would look like giving him exactly what he asked for, honesty. The kind that costs something. I texted him Saturday morning. "Can we talk today? In person?" He replied, "Come over." I packed a bag with the things I'd left at his place: sleep shirt, toothbrush, the hoodie I pretended was his but actually bought online because it smelled like laundry and not like a person. I took the train. On the walk from the station to his apartment, the wind made my eyes water. Or maybe my eyes made the wind a convenient excuse. He opened the door, and I could tell he'd cleaned like an apology. The apartment was too tidy, the kind of tidy that compensates. He hugged me, and I let him, then moved away like a tide refusing rocks. I'm not here to fight, I said, sitting at the table, hands folded like I was about to recite grace. I'm here to make a decision and hand it to you with both hands. He looked scared for the first time, and it would have broken me a month ago. Today it made me careful. Scalpels should cut clean. I can't be in a relationship where my boundary is treated like a mood, I said. I told you what porn does to my brain, what it does to us, and you made a choice after we argued to do exactly the thing that would hurt the most. Then you called me like it was a good deed. I'm not punishing you. I'm accepting the information. His jaw worked. So you're breaking up with me? I am, I said, because I owed both of us the dignity of clean lines. I don't think you want to be with me if it means giving this up, and I won't be with someone who looks at my boundary and tells himself it's a fence he can hop. He reached across the table. I can change, he said, fast, the way a person promises they can grow a plant in the dark if you just let them keep it. I can. I'll delete everything. You'll resent me, I said, soft. And I'll resent me for making you. That's not a love story. That's a stalemate. He pulled his hand back, as if touching me burned. You're overreacting. There it was. The old gospel. I let it pass through me without landing. I'm reacting exactly the amount this costs me, I said. And I'm paying my own bill. He swallowed. What about all the progress you've made? With us? With everything. I made that progress, I said. With help, yes. With you in the room, yes. But the work was mine. And it will continue. Peace doesn't evaporate because a man leaves the building. For a second I thought he would fight. Then he stood and walked to the counter. He picked up his phone, unlocked it, typed something I couldn't see, and without looking at me, he said, "Okay, okay." I repeated, feeling the echo and hating how empty it sounded. I stood. "I'll get my things." He nodded, eyes on the phone like it held the script, and he'd forgotten his lines. I packed quickly. The apartment felt suddenly small, like we'd both grown an inch and the ceilings hadn't. I slid the fake his hoodie into my tote, put the toothbrush in a zip bag, and took a last look at the plant on his windowsill, a pothose I'd given him. It was thriving. I wanted that fact to mean something and decided it didn't have to. At the door, he said my name. I turned. His face was a study in almosts. Apology almost reached his mouth. Defensiveness almost lifted his chin. Except what he said wasn't either. Does this mean what I think it does? He smiled without humor, like the sentence had become our bit. I matched it, equally humorless. Yes, I said. It means I'm not the girl you can hurt, and then asked to praise your honesty. I left. The elevator was slow, and I watched the door numbers blink down like a countdown to a different life. On the street, the air felt unfamiliar, like I'd stepped into weather from a different latitude. I walked to the station, found a seat, and let my tote guard my knees like a loyal dog. I expected to cry. Instead, I felt clear, like a bell. That clarity lasted until my phone buzzed. A text from one of his coworkers, someone I liked who clearly didn't know we'd ended. "Hey, did you see Evan's story?" I opened my social media app, and there it was, a black screen with white text, his favorite pseudo-profound font. Sometimes honesty costs you people. Be honest anyway. I laughed out loud, stupid and sharp. A stranger on the train glanced over, startled. I put the phone down like it had bitten me. He was already writing the narrative. The honest bro who lost his girlfriend because she couldn't handle truth. Not the man who used honesty like a knife and wanted applause for showing me the blood that I stared at his story until the words bored themselves into me. Then a new sentence surfaced, calm and mean as moonlight. I will give him honesty. But I will show him its price. Not with shouting. Not with public shaming. With the thing he values most. His image as the open, reasonable man that I didn't decide to be vindictive. I decided to be precise. Precision is mercy when you've been told that your feelings wander. So I spent Sunday morning at my kitchen table with a notebook, the good pen I usually save for birthday cards, and a cup of coffee that went cold while I outlined like a lawyer who also believes in ghosts. Step 1. Name the harm in neutral language. Not he's disgusting. Not men are trash. Those phrases feel big, but do small work. I wrote, when I shared that explicit content triggers trauma responses in me, he chose to consume it within hours of an argument and called to inform me, framing that call as honesty. I experienced his disclosure as punitive and boundary breaking. I asked for a boundary. He framed it as an ultimatum. Step 2. Decide what repair would have had to look like. Not to negotiate, not to invite him back, but to make sure I wasn't leaving because I was afraid of standards. I wrote, repair would require empathy, concrete behavioral change, and accountability language. I hurt you. Not PR language. I'm sorry it hurt you. Step 3. Identify what I will do to protect myself and my story. This is where the revenge lives. Not a scream, not a slash, just a mirror at the right angle. My plan needed 3 goals. In the narrative he was building, that I couldn't handle honesty without becoming the town crier. Offer him a chance, a real one, to see what honesty costs without empathy. So if he ever learned, it would be because he chose to honor my own progress by refusing to disappear into silence again. The night before, when I saw his honesty costs you people story, I had typed out a paragraph and deleted it twice. The third time, I opened my notes app and started drafting something better than a subtweet. I called it the honesty letter. Dry name, surgical intent. IT had 4 parts. Part A, the boundary I had stated from day one. In my words, dated in my journal, with the places I had said it aloud. Part B, a timeline of the night and his call. With his exact words, I watch porn. I just want to be honest. Part C, the difference between honesty is information and honesty is impact. With examples from our conversation, I'm sorry it hurt you versus I'm sorry I hurt you. Part D, the ending I chose. I am leaving to protect my nervous system, not to punish you. It was not a manifesto. It was 5 paragraphs, max. Every sentence had to be something I could read aloud to my therapist without flinching and to his mother without regret. I didn't plan to send it to her. That wasn't the point. The point was that revenge is a scalpel. If I made a single cut, it had to be clean. Then I created receipts. Not for the internet. God save me from the internet. But for the human court where reputations actually live. The friends who bring you soup when your life leaks. The people who were at the roof party where you met. I printed the texts that mattered and highlighted only verbs. Watched, told, asked, needed, hurt. It's amazing how nouns lie for us. Verbs are less loyal. They tell what we did. I also collected something I knew he cared about, his brand of honesty. He ran an after-school club for his students, physics and ethics, where he asked questions like, can truth ever harm? He loved those debates. He'd come home lit up with their answers. Once he'd said, teenagers are the best philosophers because they don't know yet that truth has the PR team of the century. I found the flyer he kept on the fridge. I took a picture. I put it in the folder with everything else. Not to blackmail him. To remember, this man preaches about the cost of truth to children who aren't allowed to pay their own rent. Next, I made calls. Not to gossip. To be accountable to the people who had witnessed our relationship and would be forced to live in it if I left no context behind. Maya first, my friend since college. Who knows exactly how my voice sounds when I'm tempted to gaslight myself. I'm going to end it. I told her. She didn't cheer. She asked for the reasons the way a doctor presses a bruise. Gently, to find the edge. I gave her the letter I drafted. She read silently, then looked up. If you send this, you're not setting fire to his house, she said. You're turning on the lights. Good, I said, and meant it. Then I called Jonah and Pri, the couple who set us up. Because nothing gets messier than being mutual friends when the 2 people you introduced break up with a story full of heat. If they were going to be stuck in our smoke, they deserved a window. Hey, I said when they picked up on speaker, their dog snuffling in the background. I'm telling you this not because I want you to pick sides, but because I am choosing to be boringly clear. I ended it. I'm okay. He and I disagree about what honesty is for. If he says I couldn't handle honesty, the piece he's missing is empathy. Here are the facts I'm comfortable with you knowing. I read them, the bullet points, the boundary, the call, the wording, the ask, the refusal. Jonah whistled softly. He called to tell you? He said, echoing my first disbelief back to me. That's a move. I think he wanted to trigger the exact insecurity I told him about. I said, or to be a martyr to the culture of confession. Either way, I can't worship at that altar. Pri asked, do you want us to talk to him? No, I said. You're not my lawyers. I'm not recruiting. I'm just putting down my side like you'd put down a towel when someone's dripping. So your floor isn't ruined by misunderstanding. Got it, they said, and meant it. We love you. We'll tell him the dog ate his phone if he tries to make us mediators. We laughed, and the laughter lined the wound with something like warmth. The close call happened Monday that I'd planned to send the honesty letter to exactly 3 people. Him, me, printed and sealed, because I keep artifacts like a museum with a rebel wing, and our mutuals Jonah and Pri. But then I woke with adrenaline slick on my throat and a new text from a number I didn't know. Hey, I'm in Evan's department. He said you ended it because you don't like honesty? He's really gutted. We're all telling him to hang in there. Point 3 things about that text. It was probably well-intended that IT contained the sentence I'd probably guessed he'd give the world that IT made my hands shake that I typed. Thanks for reaching out. We have different values around disclosure. I asked for a boundary to protect my trauma healing. He didn't honor it. I chose to leave. I hope he's okay. Take care. Then I deleted the text instead of sending it, because addressing his colleague would only widen the hallway he was shouting down. I blocked the number. And I moved step 4 to today. Public statement without public target.at lunch. I posted a thread to my private account, viewable only to the people who already had access to my living room. It wasn't a call-out. It was a small essay titled Honesty versus Kindness versus Confession. I wrote, honesty that costs only the listener isn't honesty. It's confession. Confession can be noble, but it can also be a fast way to move discomfort from the confessor's body into someone else's. Honesty, the kind that builds trust, asks, is this information in service of repair? I left a relationship where confession was framed as virtue even when it landed like a weapon. I'm okay. If you need this language, borrow it. I want honesty that's in service of us, not just in service of your image of yourself as an honest person. I attached a photo that made me smile for reasons only I needed. The pothose plant in my window, glossy and outrageous, leaves like hearts that had learned to climb. Responses trickled in like soft rain. Needed this. Oof, yes. Saving this for therapy. No one asked me who I meant. Everyone knew that wasn't the point. I put my phone face down and breathed into the quiet victory of saying something true without handing anyone a torch. That evening, I printed the honesty letter on nice paper. I sealed it in 2 envelopes. One for me, to keep in the folder I half-joked I'd bequeath to my future self, titled Proof You Didn't Imagine It. One for him. I walked to his building just before sunset, because I wanted the city to be gold to me while I did this. In the lobby, I met his neighbor, the one with the horse gallop. She smiled awkwardly. I smiled back like a woman who's learned doors are just walls with manners. I slid the envelope under his apartment door and left. By the time I reached the corner, my phone buzzed. Evan, you dropped something under my door? Me. Yes. Evan, should I be worried? I nearly laughed, because even his questions were calibrated for exoneration. I typed, no, it's just honesty, the kind I practice. Then I put my phone away, because if I watched it, we'd tangle, and I had already chosen grace for myself tonight. He didn't respond. 2 hours later, he did. Evan, processing. Can we talk? Me. I said what I needed. Take care. I expected that to be the end of the scene. Roll credits. Soft indie song. Me washing dishes like metaphors thirst. But revenge rarely resolves itself with a single act. It's a chord progression. You need at least 3 notes to know where home is. Note 2. The next day, Jonah texted me a screenshot I didn't ask for. Evan had posted another story, same font, shorter sentence. Honesty without empathy is cruelty. No commentary. Just the line I had used in my letter. Jonah wrote, he's quoting you without saying it's you. That's something. I stared until I could find the shape of my reaction. Beneath the obvious sting, he loved to be the teacher, even with borrowed chalk. There was a steadier feeling. He read it. He read all of it. He took at least 1 sentence and set it in a frame. Whether he understood it or not, water over rock. The shape of his river had met a new stone. Note 3. A week later, Pri told me he'd stopped using honesty as a trump card when their group chatted. He'd tried it once. Well, I'm just being honest. And Jonah, bless him, said gently, right, but honesty is measured by impact, remember? In the slight silence that followed, I heard the sound of a man realizing the audience had read the playbill before he arrived. None of this ruined his life. No one egged his car. He kept his job. The ethics club debated whether superheroes should reveal their identities, and he probably told them, as always, there are costs. But costs were no longer a parable he delivered to others from a pulpit. He, too, had a ledger. Meanwhile, my small world arranged itself around the new absence like flowers around fresh air. I slept. Not every night. Enough nights to believe in mornings again. The museum of my body stayed open. Not because he had been the guard and I'd fired him, but because I'd finally rehired myself. One more thing. Because planning is planning only until it meets chance. His mother called me. I didn't pick up the first 2 times. The third time I did, because avoidance is a skill that calcifies into a habit if you never stretch it back. Her voice was warm and careful. "I hope I'm not crossing a line," she said, an opening I respected. "I know you and Evan aren't together. I just wanted to say, thank you for how kind you were when I fell. And I wanted you to know I read something he left on the counter. Something you wrote. It helped me with a conversation today, with my sister, of all people. I didn't know the difference between confession and honesty. I do now. Thank you, even if you didn't mean me to see it." I closed my eyes. Somewhere in the center of the web I'd spun to protect myself, a gentle insect had wandered in and found shelter. I let that be a good thing. Revenge can be surgical and still save a life you weren't operating on. Before we hung up, she said, almost as an afterthought, "He's quiet lately." In a good way. I knew what she meant. Sometimes losing the echo teaches you what your own voice sounds like. I said. I wish him only that. If you've waited for fireworks, you may miss the hum of electricity that means the whole grid just shifted. My ending wasn't a bang. It was the measured click of circuit breakers resetting in the house of my life. A few days after his mom called, I ran into Evan. I was leaving my therapist's office with that high-altitude feeling you get after you've climbed a mountain of words and come down with only what fits in your pocket. I turned the corner, and there he was. As if the city were a stage with a limited cast, he looked different in small, important ways. No performance righteous set to his shoulders. No martyr poet squint. He seemed regular. It's wild how human a person looks when they put down the props. We stood half a pace apart. He said my name like a question he wasn't sure he had the right to ask. I nodded. He gestured to a bench. We sat, a respectful space between us, like 2 people aware of invisible guardrails. "I got your letter," he said. "I know," I said. The social media quote had been a public acknowledgement in borderless ink. He rubbed his thumb over his palm, a tell he probably didn't know he had. "I didn't think I was trying to hurt you," he said. "I think I was trying to," he stopped. "Reset. To prove I was a good man by telling you everything I did. And that's not the same thing as being good to you." The apology was not perfect. It did not include the liturgy of specifics I had imagined I deserved. But it was unadorned. And you know what I have learned? Unadorned is rare. I was angry, I said, not to punish him, just to log the weather. Angry that you wanted a medal for stepping on my foot and announcing the pain level. Angry that you made me choose between my safety and being your cool girlfriend mascot. Angry that you tried to hand me the villain's cape with a question mark. He nodded. "I did," he said. Then, quieter, "I wanted you to break up with me so I could be the one who was left. That's shame I'm going to have to look at." I looked at him and felt the complicated swell of empathy that used to drown me. Today it rose and fell like a tide that knows the moon isn't personal. "I hope you do," I said. "Not for me. For whoever loves you next." He made an aborted sound that might have been a laugh. "Is that your revenge?" he asked, a wryness that didn't feel like a defense, more like curiosity at last. "The letter?" He gestured vaguely, quote, "My revenge," I said, choosing each word like a place to set my feet on wet stones, "was refusing to carry your image for you. You worship honesty. I gave it to you with an invoice. You paid by losing me. You paid by hearing your words in other mouths and having them pin you to the meaning. That's all." He exhaled, a deflating of something I hadn't realized I was still braced against. "I wanted you to be the person who forgave me for being the man I am," he said. "That wasn't fair." "No," I said, "but I understand wanting that. We all want a witness who edits kindly." I stopped editing. We sat there long enough to move past the part where he might ask for another chance. He didn't. I think he knew that even trying would be like throwing a rope to someone who's already on shore. Before we parted, he said, "If I ever talk about this with anyone, I'll try to talk about it the way you wrote it. Not with PR. Do or don't," I said. "Both are part of your education. I'm not grading you anymore." He smiled then, small and real, The way people smile when they realize they've been let go with severance and dignity both. You're good at endings, he said. I was always afraid of that. I'm getting good at beginnings, I said. And we stood, and we left in opposite directions. Two hikers who finally admitted they were always walking different trails and had only shared a campsite. The fallout wasn't dramatic. That's the point. Revenge as spectacle is just another way of participating in the circus. Mine was quieter, which is to say it was mine. Mutual friends stopped parroting his slogans without thinking. In group chats where just being honest used to excuse 1,000 small rudenesses, someone always asked now, but is it kind? Is it necessary? Is it ours? I watched those questions move like lanterns from face to face, illuminating places that had been shadowed, not by evil, but by laziness. He kept his job. He kept his club. In one of their sessions, he apparently asked his students to define honesty. A girl named Aisha, a sharp mind with a soft voice, said, "Honesty is when you tell the truth in a way that the person you love can use to heal." He told the class, "That might be the best definition I've heard." Maybe he said it for me. Maybe he said it because it was simply true. Either way, it felt like the world was slightly better furnished than before. I kept the plant. It thrived. Every few weeks, I cut a vine and put it in water, watched it grow roots, then gifted it to a friend who needed green proof that life is hell-bent on climbing given half a chance. I made myself a promise. When I fall in love again, and I will, it will be with someone who treats my boundaries like doors we choose to walk through together, not fences he needs to jump to prove he's still free. When people asked, in that friendly, curious way humans do, "So what happened?" I said, evenly, we wanted different kinds of honesty. If they were the right people to know more, they knew how to ask. If they weren't, they nodded, satisfied. Either way, I never again begged someone to hold a shape of me they couldn't carry. The last piece of my plan slid into place 3 months later, when I was asked to speak at a community group that hosts gentle talks about hard things. Maya had recommended me for a session called Boundaries Aren't Ultimatums. I nearly declined out of a lingering superstition that telling the story would call it back. Then I remembered my letter, how saying a thing aloud had opened a door out of a room where I'd been breathing stale air for years. That I read an adapted version of the honesty letter. Names removed like license plates in an art exhibit. I ended with a line I had to practice in the mirror until my mouth learned not to tremble. Kindness without truth is sentimentality. Truth without kindness is cruelty. Ask for both. Offer both. If someone demands your praise for weaponized confession, tell them you don't tip for injuries. Afterward, a woman hugged me with the careful pressure of someone honoring a body. A man wiped his eyes and said, "I'm the one who confesses to my wife to feel like a good person. I'm going home to apologize and ask her what she needs." I walked home under a sky that looked like a clean sheet and felt the kind of tired you feel after moving houses, spent. But mind out, I didn't check his social that night. Revenge thrives on metrics. I'm done scoring. Instead, I watered the pot hose, turned off the lights, and slept without dreaming of doors. I used to think endings needed smoke to count as real, that if you didn't light the match and watch the flames singe your eyebrows, you hadn't avenged anything. Turns out, the most devastating revenge is not humiliation. It's re-education, yours first. I left a man who wanted credit for handing me pain wrapped in truth and calling it a gift. I told the story carefully enough that it did its own work. He learned, or didn't. People around us learned, or didn't. But I learned something new. One can unteach me. I am not responsible for a partner's self-image. I am responsible for the weather inside my own house. Sometimes the justice you get is quiet. A quote showing up in a font you recognize, voiced by someone who used to wield it against you. A teenager naming empathy as a condition for truth. Mutual friends asking better questions. Plants climbing. Sometimes the justice you get is loud only to you. The steady beat of your own heart when you say no and mean it. That if revenge is getting back what you lost, I got this back. My dignity without. My defensiveness. My voice without a translator. My softness without fear it will be mistaken for permission. And the museum of my body? It's still open, but the placards are different now. They say, "You are welcome. Take care of what you touch." If you've ever had someone hand you hurt and call it honesty, tell me in the comments. What boundary do you wish you'd defended sooner? Drop kind truth only, so I know you're one of us. Like, subscribe, Share this with the friend who needs a script for saying no without apologizing. And remember, revenge can be quiet. Consequences can be kind. Choose both.